stay tuned because for the next 60 minutes, Motorsports Unlimited is on the air. Hi, I'm Jerry Bryant, and these are the lovely ladies of motorsports. And all this hour, we're going to have 60 minutes of action-packed excitement. All kinds of exciting things will happen. And we got the famous Bill Wildt, and we got all kinds of other good stuff that's happening all this hour. Motorsports Unlimited, 60 minutes of non-stop action. So let's go to the studio right now.
Thanks, Jerry, and hi, everybody. Welcome to the studio headquarters of Chicagoland's most watched, most talked about Access Television series. I'm Samantha Bentley, and this is the 1021st edition of Motorsports Unlimited. This week, it's time for the conclusion of Bill Wildt's motorcycle road trip during the summer of 2006, called the Ohio Trip. Of course, it wasn't just Ohio. If you'll recall, in parts 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, Bill started by leaving the Chicagoland area in the vicinity of O'Hare Airport. He proceeded to Fairmount, Indiana to visit James Dean's hometown. Then it was a stop at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway in Indianapolis, Indiana. Then he made his way to Ohio. First, it was the United States Air Force Museum just outside of Dayton. Then it was on to the Mid-Ohio Sports Car Course to enjoy the exotic MV Agusta motorcycles at the annual Vintage Motorcycle Meet. Last week when we left Bill, he was just leaving the Mid-Ohio Sports Car Course. Let's join him.
There it is, the MV Agusta display. I couldn't be more pleased. I thought they were long gone, and while there have been rumblings of a sort of rebirth during the past few years, I wasn't aware that they were back in strength. I thought perhaps it was more of a rebadging of some other machines rather than a complete resurrection of this historic brand. My motivation for the trip was a kind of walk through the history of a machine I think I should know more about. As I understand it, each year a different mark is featured at this vintage bike meet. When I heard it was the MV Agusta this year, I wanted to attend. I wanted to know more about it. As a teenager, devouring motorcycle, hot rod, and sports car magazines, I seem to remember seeing the MV Agusta name back in the mid-50s in world road racing competition against the mighty Galeras. If I remember correctly, both were four-cylinder, double overhead cam, four-stroke machines and setting the bar for world-class high-tech machines. You have to remember, this was long before Honda came on the scene. As a matter of fact, when Honda introduced the motorcycle world-changing CB750 four-cylinder in 1969, I thought back to the MV Agustas and Galeras of the mid-50s and remembered wondering why, if these high-tech engine designs were so superior, why didn't BSA, Triumph, and the rest of the British motorcycle industry follow suit? The British bikes at the time set the world standard for high-tech motorcycles. One would have thought they'd have been watching what was going on in world-class road racing competition to redesign their machines. The MV Agustas and Galeras were not really commercially available production machines. I suppose they had little mopeds and scooters to pay the bills, but the world-class racers was where their passion was. Typically, world-class racing for all kinds of vehicles will lead the technical way. One would have thought, certainly I did, the British would seize on the world-beating engine designs to remain high-tech production motorcycling manufacturing leaders. But they didn't. Perhaps even stranger, neither did MV Agusta or Galera. It was kind of understandable for them though. Our perception of them was they were primarily racing companies who produced some other stuff to fund their racing efforts. A little like my perception of Ferrari and Lamborghini. By the way, you can imagine my surprise when decades later, Galeras would show up in Sears and Roebuck catalogs as Sears or Allstate bikes. No, they weren't the world-beating double overhead cam four-cylinder machines, but mundane little 125cc one-cylinder four-stroke road bikes. Anyway, what I expected to be a walk through history turned out to be much, much more. A little like if you attended a historic Duesenberg automobile show only to find not only historic Duesenbergs, but a new line of cars. Not rebadged vehicles, but new Duesenbergs built to the high standards of the original company. Of course, vehicles like these are not for everyone, and not even intended for high-volume production. But it's nice to know there is still room for no-expense-spared, low-production, exquisite machines. Not everyone will get to own a Ferrari, a Lamborghini, or Bugatti. but it's nice to be able to drool over them in magazines. By the way, I hope you're taking note of the number of vintage machines the spectators are tooling around with. I've seen Bultacos, Montesas, Nortons, BSAs, Triumphs, Osas, Royal Enfields, and more. As a matter of fact, and I ought to be embarrassed to admit this, many came up to me to ask me about my vintage Suzuki. Vintage indeed, it's my daily driver, I told them. I just rode it all the way from Chicago. They seemed mystified. The vast majority of old bikes here were trailered from all over the country. Come on, can a 1982 machine be considered a vintage bike? I graduated from high school in 1961. A 1982 bike isn't that old, is it? Putting all that aside, check out the grounds of the Mid-Ohio Sports Car Course. I don't know how all these bikes got here. It's been raining hard for 3 days. I guess it's true. Bikers are a hardy lot. As I was riding out, I did so realizing how much I was missing. This event was much, much larger than I anticipated. I had the impression it was a vintage motorcycle show that each year featured a different historic brand. As it turns out, the show is only a small part of the weekend's activities. There were all kinds of vintage motorcycle competitions, from road races to motocrosses to flat track, even English trials. A wonderful opportunity to not just see the vintage motorcycles in a static show setting, but to see them in action, competing with each other. I certainly wasn't prepared for all of this, nor did I have the time available. If you'll recall, I mentioned at the beginning of this trip the only reason I was able to go was the car show we were scheduled to cover on the weekend preceding this event was the Lincoln Park Savings Bank event on a Saturday, and the weekend afterwards was the Bill K. Corvette show on Sunday. I felt the extra day offered by the fact that both shows weren't on Sunday made it possible for me to squeeze this trip in. But I had to haul back to Chicago now to be ready to cover the Bill K. show on Sunday. I know I'm passing up lots of cool stuff I'd like to see and show you, but I've got to get back.
Stop and get a picture of himself and his bike at the front gate of the Mid-Ohio Sports Car Course. Hi, I'm Patty Borowitz. Let's rejoin him and see what's next.
Mid-Ohio Sports Car Course. This was in fact part 4, or destination 4 I should just say, is our motorcycle adventure. But once again, I want to make it clear that it was not just about the destinations. It's about the ride. And if you talk to people that ride, in fact, I found it very interesting. I mentioned earlier, I think I mentioned about the guys that were talking about the 6,000 and 7,000 mile road trips they take every year, and how it didn't make any difference if it rained or whatever it was. In fact, in some ways that contributed to the adventure, and it really is true. But I was also talking to a 70-year-old man who rode in from, I believe, Rhode Island. Not sure. I think it was Rhode Island. 70 years old. Had himself a Harley, not a trike, two-wheeler, full of energy, and was talking to him about the same thing. He says, oh yeah, he says, a little bit of rain just adds a little spice to it. He says, it wouldn't really be anything if you didn't have, if all it was perfect weather and everything, it wouldn't have the adventure to it. So talk about the right spirit and the right attitude. These guys really have it. a good time.
In a few moments, I would find out what that vintage bike was, and, as you'll hear, the past turned out to be almost pathetic.
I think that's where I was supposed to turn, but I'm going to continue on because this, I think this road goes right into town also. And if it doesn't, I'll have made my own little adventure. It's hard to resist a pretty road like this. As if by magic, the sun pops out again, and when I tell you it pops out with a vengeance. What pretty country. Just a shame it's been raining so much. I mean, I like the adventure of a little spice of rain too, but I would really like to enjoy this countryside. Now it is my plan to start working my way back to Chicago. The way I was able to squeeze this trip in, I'm sure everyone realizes that during the summer we have a very heavy car show shooting schedule. And when I looked at the schedule, the Lincoln Park Savings Bank car show was on a Saturday, and the Bill K. Corvette show was on a Sunday the following week. I said, that gives me an extra day. Maybe I can just about swing getting this in. But I've got to hustle because it's Friday afternoon right now, and the Bill K. Corvette show is Sunday. Now, of course, my trip home will be much faster because Route 30 comes in right up here somewhere. I've got to stop and get some direction. Route 30 almost comes directly to the mid-house. That's the Route 30 in Indiana that I use all the time, and Illinois for that matter, and Ohio, I guess. Comes almost directly right to the Mid-Ohio sports car course. So on the way home, it should be a direct shot. Matter of fact, I'll give you an idea of just how long it is and all that sort of thing if I remember to set my trip meter and everything. But it's really quite a place. It's really worth coming and seeing. And now that I've covered all the other spots that I wanted to, and I had to do it that way, by the way, folks, because this event is Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, and I had to be back to Chicago by Sunday for the Bill K. Corvette show. So I said the most I can do is come here on Friday, which I did, and then I was going to have to take off after that. However, I had the week preceding it, so I wanted to find some other things of interest, and I've been very, very pleased with what I found. Now, somewhere there's got to be a nice little restaurant here. Hopefully with some electricity. I have to charge my batteries. Oh, apparently that bike that went by me was a Vincent. Amazing. Vincent was the fastest motorcycle in the world for about 35 or 36 years. Certainly all the years of my teenage days. 61 cubic inch V-twin, overhead valve, no cams, no overhead cams. Quite a machine.
In my teenage days, the Vincent Black Lightning was the fastest motorcycle in the world, having set a world land speed record at the Bonneville Salt Flats at over 150 miles per hour in 1948. As I recall, the record stood for some 20 or 30 years. I had a chance to ride one when I was about 16. My memory of it was very powerful but handled strangely.
Really is something. When that sun comes out, it comes out with just a vengeance. It's you can almost feel your arms hurting immediately as soon as the sun comes. It's so intense. You would think it would burn off all that moisture in the upper atmosphere.
A side note to the Vincent Bonneville record run is that it produced one of the most famous motorcycle pictures of all time. It seems the rider had blown his leathers off on a previous record attempt the day before at 147 miles an hour. With no spare, he made the 150 mile per hour plus pass with only a bathing suit, a shower cap, and sandals.
Looking for a place to eat and charge some batteries.
A week or so after I returned home, MV Augusta made news setting a new world land speed record at Bonneville for 1,000cc production motorcycles. They achieved a two-way average of 185.8 miles per hour and a one-way speed of 187.7. I find it interesting that the Vincent was a 1,000cc motorcycle and held the world motorcycle speed record for so many years, and an example of the machine passed me on the back roads of Ohio literally moments after I was finished drooling over the new MV Augusta that was destined to set a new world land speed record for production 1,000cc motorcycles in a couple of weeks. By the way, how fast did Matt say the F4 would go?
On paper, stock gearing, this bike will do 186 miles an hour.
Cool, Matt. Cool.
Of course, like every other biker, you always look for a place to so you can keep an eye on your bike while you're eating. You never have to worry about other bikers, but you do have to worry about neighborhood teenagers and things like that. They see the saddlebags and think it might be an easy score. And there's a place right there.
Keeps mentioning batteries. It's something you have to pay attention to if you plan on videotaping a motorcycle road trip. The helmet cam takes special batteries, the recording deck takes different special batteries, and the mic takes its own battery. Each has to have its own battery charger, and of course, electricity. In about an hour, Bill was finished eating, had his batteries charged, gotten directions, and headed out to find his way back to Chicago. Let's join him.
Alright, I've got a full stomach, and hopefully somewhere along the line here I'll see a gas station, then I'll have a full gas tank. I don't know if the audience can see it, but I'm a little bit low. Probably go another 20 miles, something like that. Now the sun is back out again, making everybody crazy, putting this stuff away, taking it out, putting it away, taking it out. Really a nice event, just something that really takes a lot more thought and concentration in order to take it all in. Wow, huge event. Now I want to give you an idea of how to do this from Chicago, and as I understand it, I'm taking 97 and I am watching for 314. I make a right at 314 and go to US 30 and then a left at 30 and back to Chicago. So hopefully I'll get a little bit of an idea of how long it takes to get to Mid-Ohio Sports Car Course from Chicago, taking Route 30 all the way. right on schedule, right where we're supposed to be. I make a right turn here now. Guess I'm gonna have to put the turn signal on. There's a guy behind me, I don't know what I'm doing. Boy, I hope I remember to turn it off. Turn signal off. I'm glad you're watching me, folks. And boy, do I hope you're watching this scenery.
While we're riding along enjoying this lovely scenery, I want to talk a bit about why I've included so much riding footage in this particular road trip presentation. You see, I find myself continually frustrated trying to put the joy of riding into words. Over the years, I've heard and seen a number of efforts to do it, but all have fallen far short of the mark. The best explanation I've heard was during an interview with a man who was identified as being the founder of the Hells Angels Motorcycle Club. The interviewer asked, "Why do you ride?" The man thought for a moment, then said, "I probably can't explain it to you, but let me try it this way. Did you ever see a family in the family car traveling down the road with a family dog, the dog's head hanging out the window?" The dog gets it. It's the best explanation I've heard, and if I have to explain the explanation to someone, they probably won't understand. But I'm going to try anyway. It's my job. I've mentioned before, the pleasure of riding involves the assault of all of one's senses, but I think that needs some expansion. Let's start with hearing. Motorcycles are quite different from cars. Automobile companies go through a great deal of effort to insulate you from the vehicle. They don't want you to hear anything inside the car except the stereo. Mechanical noise should never find its way inside. Motorcycles are quite different. Owing to the lack of bodywork, firewalls, insulation, sound deadening panels, and the rest, one hears every bit of mechanical noise. Or should I say music? Yes, music. To those of us who ride, the mechanical sounds of a motorcycle are sweet music. Heck, we even pick bikes based on the kind of sounds they make. Some hearing that won't believe it, but those of us who ride, we know how important it is. One wouldn't listen to Dixieland if he liked country, or Sinatra if he liked Presley. Personally, I like the sound of engines with symmetrical firing orders. I particularly like the howl of the inline four-cylinder crotch rockets, or perhaps the Porsche 911-like Honda Goldwing 6-cylinder. Let's not forget my early love of 360-degree crankshaft British vertical twins. All of these are sweet music to my ears. On the other hand, many enjoy the asymmetrical firing order of the Harley Big Twins, or Ducatis, or many of the new Japanese cruisers. Because the sounds a machine makes are so much a part of what you experience when you ride, it's important your bike makes the sounds that are music to your ears. You're going to be hearing it for hours. By the way, I don't want to put too fine of a point on it for this discussion, but the sounds emanating from a motorcycle do not just come from the exhaust. No, indeed. The transmission and driveline contribute the fills in this kaleidoscope of sounds, creating the compelling music we so enjoy. Of course, it's not just something you hear. It's something you feel at the same time. Sound is vibration through the air, and those same sounds are transmitted subtly through the seat, handlebars, foot pegs, even where your knees grasp the tank. Every bike is different, and everyone's taste is different. I personally enjoyed the almost jet plane-like sound and feel of my Suzuki GSX 1100G high-performance touring bike I have at home. Others enjoy the thunder of lower RPM Yestertech engine designs of the past with near contraption-like drivelines. It's really no different than music or art. Some like rock, some like Bach. Some like modern art, some like classic art. Some like blondes, some like brunettes. There is no right or wrong. But when you find the right one for you, it is a wonderful, unrivaled, visceral experience. Now, try to capture that viscerally pleasing experience on television using a mic picking up more wind noise than anything else and absolutely no way of communicating the attendant feel. It's very frustrating.
This is the way to enjoy a motorcycle. Beautiful winding country roads, smooth.
There's more, of course. The feel you get from the harmonics of the machinery beneath you is joined by the feel of the rush of air over your body. That's right, over your body. We've often heard the old chestnut about riders enjoying the wind in their hair. The fact is, it's wind over our entire body, a continuous full body massage. This too is different with each bike. Some have full fairings to lessen some of the buffeting. Not as exhilarating as the full body blast of naked touring. No, that doesn't mean nude. It means bikes without all the molded-in fairings, windscreens, and saddlebags. It's more basic touring hardware, perhaps soft bags and a windshield like I'm doing now. Some would even insist naked touring means without a windshield. I'm too old for that. I like the protection a windshield offers from full blast wind to air sneaking around the windshield, losing some of its force before blowing over my body and moving on. Many riders compromise. One of Chicago's most well-known medical doctors, Dr. Joseph Sadowski, we call him Doc Joe, has his windshield set up for quick removal. If his trip is around town or less than 150 miles, he removes it and enjoys the full blast of air it provides. The point is, it's personal. Very few motorcycles are ever left in standard form. People are different. Not right or wrong, just different. I can't tell you what a joy it is to have a machine under you making all the right sounds, providing a seductive feel, then the perfectly adjusted airflow for you rushing over your body. Oh yeah, throw in the warmth of the sun on your arms. We all think about sun as something you see, but on a motorcycle, it's something you feel. In fact, everything about motorcycling is something you feel or hear or see or smell or even taste. Automobiles are intended to isolate you from themselves and everything around you. Motorcycles immerse you in themselves and everything around you. Neither is right or wrong, and I'm glad they're both there. But few ever know the pleasure of motorcycling. So as you view this riding footage, try to use your imagination and experience the ride. Don't just watch it, or you'll miss the point of a motorcycle road trip. Okay, well, I'm looking for 30. I assume I just be going to 30. Oh, there it is, 230, okay. East. No, I want 30 west. What's the matter with me? I've been doing east for so many days that I lost my head. 30 west. Are you remembering to try to feel this as well as watch it? I haven't even mentioned, in addition to the machine's harmonics and the wind and the sun, there is the pleasant or scary, depending on you, pull of gravity as you bank the motorcycle over in turns or accelerate or decelerate. This too is all personal on a motorcycle. The harder you bend it into a corner, the stronger the pull of gravity. This can be very addicting. Ask any road racer. Once again, I ask you to use your imagination. Try to feel the ride. I can only provide you with electronic images and inadequate sound on TV. But if you use your imagination, I mean really use your imagination, you'll be able to enjoy some of the experience. Note to myself, it's 2:15 Chicago time right now. As I'm entering Route 30. Took us about 15 minutes to get here from Mid-Ohio, 10 or 15.
spent a fair amount of time showing you how to get from the Mid-Ohio Sports Car Course to US 30 because he thinks it's the best way to get to this road racetrack for any kind of event. From the Chicagoland area is to take US 30 directly to the track area, then reverse his directions. He just took 97 to 314, then 314 to US 30. At most, this shouldn't take more than 15 minutes either way. Oh yes, the other reason for showing you all this was the beautiful country. It's very pretty in Mid-Ohio. Now, let's rejoin Bill at the Indiana border.
Well, as they say, back home again in Indiana. It's been about, I think it was about 2:15 or so when we left at 3:15, 4:15. Make it almost 3 hours, 2.5, 3 hours. I stopped for gas on the way. Just to let you know that Route 30 in Ohio, at least from the Indiana border all the way to the Mid-Ohio Sports Car Course, is about 2/3 of it is exactly like an interstate, smooth as glass. Just what most people would consider a perfect road for traveling. What is I consider less desirable. I like the third of it or quarter of it, how much ever it was. It was more like the Route 30 that we're used to in Illinois and in Indiana. A little bit more picturesque through the towns and all that. But this has been a good 2/3, maybe 3/4 has been exactly like an interstate. For those that are interested in going to the Mid-Ohio Sports Car Course from Chicago, Route 30 is just about straight as an arrow all the way out there, and at least the Ohio section is exactly like going on the interstate. You can definitely make a lot of time and all that. Anyhow, I am going to continue on west, going into Indiana now, and I think by about the time I get to Fort Wayne, I'm going to need fuel again.
Let me see if I have this straight. After Bill got on US 30 from 314, he rode west to Indiana where he stopped at the Ohio-Indiana border to mark his progress. It apparently took him about 2.5 hours to cover this 125 miles, including a fuel stop. Speaking of fuel, he's getting low. Let's hope he makes the next 20 or so miles to Fort Wayne.
Boy, I hope the audience can see that. Welcome to Indiana Crossroads of America. I'm holding my helmet at about the angle I think the helmet cam should be able to see it, but unfortunately it's totally backlit, meaning the sun is facing us, so you can't see much of it. As a matter of fact, this little piece of America right here was so pretty. I took a little video of it before I put the equipment away. Maybe you're seeing that right now. If it worked, in any event, pretty little area here, heartland of America and all that stuff. We're going to continue on now. I think Fort Wayne, I think, is going to be next. As I'm sure the audience can see, I'm getting low on fuel. Be interesting for me from a videography standpoint to see if we're getting any of this because we're shooting directly into the sun. Yes, I definitely need fuel. Matter of fact, cleaning the windshield maybe wouldn't be a bad idea either.
Bill was definitely getting concerned about fuel, and while he was thinking about it, he nearly missed a peculiar exit necessary to continue west on US 30. He kind of thought US 30 would be an uninterrupted straight shot through Fort Wayne, But as it turned out, an exit right was necessary. He nearly missed it.
Well, this one caught me by surprise a little bit. 30 west is a hard right turn here, like I'm getting off of a highway of some sort, which doesn't really surprise me. It could very well be that portions of Route 30 from, certainly in Ohio, could very well be an interstate because they're, absolutely interstate-like as far as making time and all that, but it doesn't have the charm that I'm looking for when I go out for a ride on a motorcycle. But for somebody that wants to go to the Mid-Ohio Sports Car Course, I can tell you from Chicago, Route 30 is straight as an arrow right to the heart of the course.
After assuring himself he was on the right road, he watched for the first possible exit that looked like it might have been a fuel stop.
Well, let's see, we got the first float lane exit coming up. I see that they've got fuel and fluid there. I don't need food, but I need fuel. By the way, I should also mention that wearing a dark shirt, it wasn't the best idea I've ever had. I brought a couple of those white ones with long sleeves that I bought on the New York trip that helped so much keep my sunburn down, but I'm experimenting with this sunblock stuff, and I've got so much of it smeared on me. I've smeared it on twice today, very heavily. And after I get done filling up with fuel here, I'm going to smear it on again. That I don't really want to get it all over the shirt. Or I would have put the white ones with the long sleeves on already. But note to myself, no dark shirts for this. It just attracts the sun like a magnet. Well, you'd think I'd know that, wouldn't you? And I turned off the turn signal all by myself again. Not bad, Bill. Not bad. There is a device made for resolving that I've been looking at. I may just do that.
After fueling up, Bill was ready to go and pondering whether he could get to Chicago without refueling again.
Okay, fresh load of fuel, ready to go. Got my receipt. What's the easiest way to do this? Looks like out here, make a U-turn. and we'll see if I can figure out how to get back on 30 going west. Now, I don't think I've got enough fuel. I'm typically good for, well, if I want to push it, maybe 160 miles on a tank. I can do better than that. I've got. The problem is, motorcycles, this one too, typically have reserve tanks, and this one, the reserve tank is too high, meaning it goes on reserve at about a 1/3 tank left, and it's just too much of a pain. I get down to maybe 125, 130 miles to go, and I go on reserve. It's like, well, it's just a pain, so I leave it on reserve all the time. So it will run out of fuel, which I don't want it to do, obviously. So I always pay attention. About 150 miles, 160, I refuel. Now, I've already gone as far as, seems to me I went 190 or 195 one time. And it did run out of gas, but I was kind of trying to see what would go out. So anyway, point is, I'm not sure how far Chicago is from here. I'm guessing 150 miles, so maybe I'll be close. Maybe that's the last fuel stop. We'll see. It's 5:39 Chicago time. So we should be looking 6:39, 7:50, 7:20, something like that. All right, there's junction 30. Which way is west? And by the way, I want to thank you all for coming along on this little adventure with me. It's nice to have the company. Hope you've enjoyed a little bit of it. And again, let's see, what are we doing here? And again, one of the reasons that I put the riding footage in, even though I know it can be redundant, well, I gotta get to the left side. Yes, I do. What I'm trying to do, and I don't think it can ever be successful on television, is to show you some of the joy of riding. Some of the things that all of these riders that I encountered on this trip all know and understand, and also don't know how to explain.
While Bill is enjoying the countryside, let's take a moment to review the trip for those who didn't see the first 5 episodes of this adventure. After leaving the Chicagoland area, his first stop was Fairmount, Indiana, to visit the boyhood home of the man who made the 1949, 50, and 51 Mercuries famous, James Dean. He found the motorcycle shop James Dean used to hang around at most compelling, along with the total lack of commercialization.
Now, James Dean certainly would have been a young man at that time, and this is where he hung out. This I can relate to. You know, they talk about it down here, that James Dean was the man that invented cool. Well, in a way, he kind of was. He was the first guy with the look. My generation maybe would have said Elvis Presley, but boy, you can really see the similarity in their presentation and their the way they carried themselves and all that. And it sort of set a standard for a generation. Anyway, interesting how some things touch you. This place touched me, and I said, you know what? I'm going to go back in the daylight and just talk about that a little bit. I get it now. I get the James Dean thing. Pretty cool.
The next stop was the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. He feels it's a place a motorsport guy has to stop at if he's in the area.
Well, here we are, the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. It's been an ordeal getting through Indianapolis. I've always come to the Speedway coming down from Chicago, and there's a certain set path that we always take, and we sort of slide right in here off the expressways. Not exactly easy when you come from the south side of the town through the back roads and all that. Anyhow, we're here. I just didn't want to pass by this neck of the woods, so to speak, without including a stop at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway.
Then it was off to the United States Air Force Museum just outside of Dayton, Ohio. What a treat this turned out to be, featuring fantastic airplanes and technology everywhere you looked. He plans on going back and spending a few days there.
Not only do they have one of these original aircraft here at this museum, they also have a cutaway of one of the original engines. They have a non-cutaway, an engine in its entirety. In addition to that, and folks, I cannot show you even a taste of this. They also have a buzz bomb, an original buzz bomb. These are the ones they're often identified as rockets. They weren't rockets. These were the ramjet engines that they sent bombs flying over England in. They've got one of those in their entirety with a cutaway of the engine if you want to learn how a ramjet works. Not just that, the rocket plane, the German rocket plane that they developed just towards the end of the war. One-person airplane that would take off, fly 600 miles an hour, attack, and then coast back to the ground. They've got one of those here with engines sitting on the ground, so you can examine what the engine looks like and kind of figure out how it works and all that.
all right here. I cannot believe I didn't know that all this was here. Folks, again, scratching the surface is not the right word.
After that, it was the vintage motorcycle meet at the Mid-Ohio Sports Car Course featuring the MV Agusta mark with a wonderful living history presented.
Folks, first of all, once again, don't depend on me to bring you any portion of this show. I had no idea. This, first of all, the Mid-Ohio Sports Car Course is huge. It's the first time I've been here. I mean, it literally goes miles and miles, acres and acres, and the motorcycles here are everywhere, and it's not just, I thought it was a vintage motorcycle show. It's a motocross, it's a flat track race, it's, well, apparently a little bit of everything, and there are thousands and thousands of bikes here. I can't do all of that. I'm one guy by myself, so I decided, I found out that what they have is what's called a featured mark at this event every year. And this year it's the MV Agusta, which is a very exotic, for you car people, we're talking Ferrari. If that's pretty close to right, I've got a guy here that's going to explain the MV Agusta line, and you are.
My name is Matthew Stutzman, and I'm the general manager of Kajiva USA, responsible for the MV Agusta brand in North America.
And now Bill is headed home. Bill continued west on US 30. And arrived in Dyer, Indiana as night was falling.
We're now in Dyer, Indiana. As you can see, it's dark, getting dark. About 8:30 Chicago time. And Indiana time for that matter. I guess I can stop saying that now. Dyer is the last Indiana town before we go into an Illinois town. And I thought, time to fuel up. One last time. I'm, 144 miles. It's time. Time to fuel up for the final push home. And I suppose this one's as good as any, being that it'll be gone by the time I get home.
Apparently, Bill miscalculated the distance. There was no chance he could get back to Chicago without refueling. By the way, don't be fooled by our camera. It has excellent low light capability. It's really quite dark out. Let's continue.
All right, full of fuel. Zero the trip meter. More than enough to get home. You know what's funny about this? I love going on these trips. Thoroughly enjoy everything about them. But in the final analysis, I'm always anxious to get home, or eager to get home, I suppose is the right thing. I miss my dogs. I've got two of the cutest little dogs on this planet that make me laugh every day. Little Princey and little Tiny. It's a miniature poodle and a toy poodle. Miniature is the male and the toy is the female. Two little apricot poodles. Just incredible animals. They're sweet as they can be, and as I said, make me laugh every day, and I miss them. Of course, I miss my friends and all that. Love to go, love to come back. By the way, let me say something too about this motorcycle. I don't even think I've mentioned it this time. This is a 1982 Suzuki GS650G. The G at the end means it's a shaft drive bike, or a touring bike. This is absolutely my overachiever. What an incredible machine this is. I mean, it just does not miss a beat. Suzuki can be very proud of this. It's a shame they don't make something like this, or make this, or even something like it anymore. What a great machine. when you think about it, this bike 2 years ago took me back to my boyhood home in upstate New York after not returning for 50 years. And then that trip took me from Illinois to Indiana, to Ohio, to Pennsylvania, to New York, and back. And then the following year, took me to Kansas City by way of Illinois, Missouri, and then Kansas. And on the return to the Lake of the Ozarks, and an absolutely delightful, delightful trip. And now this year, the Ohio trip, if we can call it that, which included stops at James Dean's hometown, Indianapolis Motor Speedway, the wonderful United States Air Force Aircraft Museum, the largest one in the world, and of course the next surprise, the huge vintage motorcycle meet. Huge, huge, huge. And now returning me home. Now if that isn't the magic carpet, I don't know what is. And all the time, never even thought about missing a beat. Just awesome. Riding through the rain 2-3 hours. Just today, I don't think the tachometer ever dropped below 6,000 RPM. Hour after hour after hour. What a bike. Amazing.
Come on, Bill. You know this isn't going to work. It's way too dark.
Well, folks, I'm sure it's too dark for you to see it, but I wanted to try it anyway, and if I can afterwards, I'll take a picture of it and throw that over this shot. But behind me is the Welcome to Illinois sign. It means that I'm back in my home state of Illinois. Final leg home. Should be home in about an hour or so, and right now it's almost 9 o'clock, so it should be about 10 o'clock. It'll be over. And once again, just another wonderful, yes, I'm eager to get home, but it was a wonderful motorcycle adventure, motorcycle road trip, and I hope in the process of doing this, I've helped you understand a little bit more about what people get out of this when they go on these motorcycle road trips.
I think I get it. It's about adventure, about seeing and experiencing new things in a way you never have before. Very cool. Time to go home.
We're in Linwood, Illinois. First Illinois town as we go through the gateway from, I should say, the non-interstate gateway from Illinois to Indiana.
Boy, I don't know. It looks like so much fun, but it looks a little scary too. I'll have to think about this later though, because we're out of time with only enough left to acknowledge the fine work of our award-winning production team, including Chuck Itzenthaler, Sue Cassanda, our webmaster Frank Barbalace, Rena Borwitz, and Tom McGrady. Special thanks to JBTV's Jerry Bryant. Music is created for us by independent artists Roger Pauley and Jerry Herbert. Of course, we have to take a moment to thank the stars of this edition of Motorsports Unlimited. Janine Lauschat, Patty Borwitz, and our host, Bill Wildt. Me, I'm Samantha Bentley, thinking maybe I'd like a motorcycle road trip in the daylight, not at night. But Bill says I'd miss half the fun then. I still have to think about it. Thanks for watching. See you next week.
This program made possible in part by support from Bridgestone Firestone and your local Bridgestone Firestone tire retailers.
This program made possible in part by support from Copy That, located in the County Farm Plaza at County Farm Road and Army Trail Road in Carroll Stream, Illinois. This program made possible in part by support from PB Food Products, located on 47th Street at Western Avenue in Chicago, Illinois.
Motorsports Unlimited is produced by Bill Wildt, president of the Motorsport Advancement Crusade.
This program made possible in part by support from J.C. Whitney & Company, located just off I-80 at the Utica exit in LaSalle, Illinois.
This program made possible in part by support from Jimmy's Red Hots, located on Grant Avenue and Pulaski Road in Chicago.
This program made possible in part by support from the Chicagoland Toys for Tots Motorcycle Parade, held on Western Avenue in Chicago, the first Sunday in December.
This program made possible in part by support from ABC Auto Parts, located on Ashland Avenue at 138th Street in Blue Island, Illinois.
Motorsports Unlimited was created to raise public consciousness, understanding, and appreciation of the motorsport community and their activities. You can contact us by email at msutv.com, or you can write to Motorsport, P.O. Box 66242, Chicago, Illinois, 60666. We enjoy hearing from our audience. Please let us know what you think.
Next week on Motorsports Unlimited, it's the 25th annual Chevy Vet Fest Car Show. After 2 decades at McCormick Place on Chicago's lakefront, it's been moved to the Donald E. Stevens Convention Center in suburban Rosemont. It turned out to be a huge success. Join us next week on Motorsports Unlimited and check it out.
So that's it, another edition of Motorsports Unlimited and the lovely ladies of motorsports. And be with us next week because we'll have something real exciting. Bill Wildt's going to have the lovely ladies, and just about anything can happen right here on Motorsports Unlimited. Every week at this time, we bring you the best in motorsports. So, be seeing ya. Bye-bye. And keep on rocking.